Morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is Darren Smith along with Steve Walls, and we are live from inside the press box here at Empower Field at Mile High Stadium, where the Chiefs are taking on the Denver Broncos in a 2:30 p.m. local time kickoff. 3:30 for Kansas City. Before we dive into the ball game, Steve, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well, man. Saturday games. Man, this is kind of weird. Normally we travel on Saturdays for a Sunday game, but Saturdays are meant for college, not NFL.
Well, look, I'm not going to complain because considering the travel arrangements that we had last week, this is much better, especially our getting to and getting out of here. So, again, setting the scene today, Kansas City, who comes into today's ball game with an 11-5 record, take on the 7-9 Denver Broncos. The Chiefs have won the last 12 games that these two teams have faced off against one another. And Steve, what's most important is that Patrick Mahomes, this is one of the few teams that Mahomes is actually undefeated against in his career. He's beaten them 8 straight times right now, looking for 9 in a row, and to have a good chance today with the absence of Pat Surtain on the defense for the Broncos.
Yeah, but you got to remember though, this Denver Broncos team is coming. Even though they're 7-9, they had a couple notable wins this season. One being over the America's team, Dallas Cowboys, and also the Chargers, another division foe. That the Chiefs go up against each and every year as well. So I think they're going to come in here hungry and kind of want to. When you get a team like the Broncos that's going up against a team, like Kansas City, they have a chance to kind of disrupt some things, in the Chiefs playoff picture.
Look, I talked about it this morning when I did a 2-hour show on A10. This game is important to Kansas City. I mean, and this, even though we expect Kansas City to win, a few of us kind of expect them to win last week against the Bengals, considering how they played. But this is still a must-win game for Kansas City. I know we kind of talked before the air, maybe it's a situation who they want to play. You always want to win, and you want to go into the playoffs on a high note. If the Chiefs win, they lock up at a minimum the number 2 seed. If they lose, they could be number 3, could be number 4, depending on how things shake out over the weekend. If you're Kansas City, obviously, to me, you want to play to win the ball game.
You do. The thing about it is you want to shake off the loss from last week. I think that's first and foremost, because even though you say, hindsight's 2020, i.e. Steve Spagnuolo earlier this week, and also, you don't want to talk about old news, but they still had that bad taste in their mouth.
Yeah.
And we heard a couple guys speak earlier to the media earlier this week that just said, hey, they're happy that the game is on Saturday because of a quick turnaround. They're able to get right to it. And so I think, this Chiefs team coming in today, they're going to want to show that last week was just one of those outliers, so to speak.
Chiefs were 34-31 losers to the Cincinnati Bengals. The Broncos lost 34-13 against the Chargers on last week. So again, we're here today because obviously the NFL, they decided to flex a couple of ball games on Sunday to Saturday, which is good for football fans all around. They want to make sure that that these games continue to mean something going into the last week of the season, and that the teams also play their starters in the last ball game. Now, Had Kansas City won last week, Steve, they probably would have had Tennessee Titans playing today, forced the Titans to play. And if the Titans win, then of course Kansas City would have had to win the game on tomorrow. But be that as it may, Kansas City's up first. If they win this game, of course, Tennessee needs a loss to the Houston Texans, which can happen because the Texans beat Tennessee earlier this season.
They did. And I looked at that game when they lost, and they did some things, and they had Derrick Henry too. This
Yeah.
time they don't. So I think the Houston Texans want to play spoiler, just like the Broncos do. So it's what we talked about earlier this season. It's like, man, you kind of want to take care of things on your own, so that way you don't have to sit back and watch the scoreboard, which I think now Chiefs fans and also this Chiefs team is going to have to do.
And one of the things, of course, talking with kind of a few people in the Chiefs organization, they are actually pretty glad that they do have a Saturday game versus, of course, Sunday. Works better out for the travel squad. But then, the Chiefs, they get back in later on tonight after the
Mhm.
game. They get all day tomorrow to just sit back and watch things shake out while everybody else is as you mentioned before, scoreboard watching, trying to make sure that they can get out the game unscathed. Chiefs are already be back home on their couch or in their bed or whatever, watching the game, get ready to line up to see who their opponent's going to be, and also when they're going to play because they could play next Saturday, they could play next Sunday, they could even host a Monday night football game.
That's what I'm thinking.
Me too.
The league flexed this game for a reason, right? And everything that's done is done for a reason, right? Like you're not just gonna flex a game like, oh, we're just gonna throw a dart at a schedule in a dark room. Like, oh, we picked the Chiefs. Okay, landed there. But let's just have them play. No, this it's a reason why they're playing. It's we don't know why, but I think they'll probably end up having that Monday night game, which will be fine. It'll be at Arrowhead, so
And
you know.
and the other thing is the Chiefs will be able to watch all the other teams play and,
Hmm.
and kind of get an idea. Okay, if we win, this is who we'll face.
Hmm.
Steve, the Denver Broncos, they come into today's game. They're going to be led by your guy Drew Lock. Drew Lock was a starter a couple years ago. Was a starter last year. They brought in Teddy Bridgewater. He got injured, and now of course Drew Lock is up to play. This could potentially be his last game as a starter or as a player, nonetheless, with the Denver Broncos, as well as Vic Fangio. People are talking about how his job might be on the line. If that is to be, how does Drew Lock come out and play in today's game?
I've said it all week.
You were saying it for the last two,
Just
3 years,
well,
probably.
no. Just I mean, look, I know Drew. I know the Lock family. I know
Facts.
Drew. So all that to the side, I think today he's going to come out and show or try to show why he should be a NFL starter. Look,
Yeah.
he started last week, 18 of 25, 245 yards, one touchdown against the Chargers. They
Yeah.
lost 34-13, but I think today it's going to be a closer ball game at the beginning. I think first half, you'll see Drew Lock try to come out here and just and play good football. He needs to put good film on there, and with no turnovers. That's the thing that I think is kind of hindered his game over these past couple years as an NFL player or NFL quarterback. He's had a lot of turnovers, and I think that's what's cost him, the starting position here in in Denver. But I've also said that Denver hasn't put, guys around him to make him better, right? And I know you. Some guys fans would say, "Hey, you're the quarterback. You got to make guys better." But as a young QB, if you don't have a roster that you just look at the Chiefs. I mean, you have Travis Kelce, you have Tyreek Hill, you had Sammy Watkins, you had some other guys. What was his name? Albert Wilson.
Yeah.
Guys like that were veterans in the league and good teammates. So you have a bunch of young guys as far as this receiving core that Drew Lock didn't really have anybody. They threw him in the fire and expected to say, "Hey, go win, go to the mountaintop in a tough AFC West," and he hasn't been able to do that. But I think today he's going to show, put some good film out there, and if this is his last game in Denver, so be it. He'll look elsewhere.
I do like to tell people that, and of course, Steve, you and I, we have this conversation from time to time that I don't not like Drew Lock. I just don't believe that he's a franchise quarterback.
Mhm.
Now, I will also say this: there, there, it does matter your surrounding cast. For example, if Patrick Mahomes was with the Chicago Bears, I don't think Chicago Bears would still be successful. Yeah,
Mhm.
so I do understand there is a cause and effect to everything, and the fact that he doesn't have the talent that people. But see, the problem is that I do believe that they have the talent. I just don't know now whether or not they have the right coaching staff is another matter, and that could be an issue as well. Because of course, when you look at Vic Fangio, they're talking about his job might be on the line. But if you don't feel like you have a franchise quarterback, you don't believe in the quarterback that you have, that's going to play a role in the team's success or failures as well. Now, look, he's surrounded by Melvin Gordon in the backfield. Melvin Gordon, was a high quality running back for the Chargers when he played there. Javante Williams, had 178 scrimmage yards in Week 13. He also has Cortland Sutherland. They also have the kid from was it Judy? What's
Yeah, Jerry Judy.
Jerry Judy, yeah.
Hmm.
And so I mean, they have talent there. Noah Fant, tight end. I mean, they have talent there. It's just again, sometimes it could be the quarterback, and sometimes it could be the coach and the play call and stuff like that. That could be an issue as to why the team is not successful. So, but looking at that, you talked about how he'll probably play well today, or at least play well for him to have something on film that in the offseason, if the team is looking to trade him or get some capital off of him,
Hmm.
he'll need it, to go someplace successful.
And if he comes out here and has a win, look, that you can go into the offseason and say, hey, I did that. I beat a team that's going to the playoffs. Two-time, one-time Super Bowl champion. Uh, they've been to Super Bowl twice, 2 years in a row, and I went out there and beat them. So, uh, yeah, as I look up in the stands and I see a guy, I see a name, John Elway, right? People expect because John Elway's here with the organization that Drew Lock should be better than what he is or further along. But I just don't think that they've taken the time. And this is on the outside looking in, but I just don't think that they've taken the time and put forth a little more effort to make sure that things worked out.
I'll be honest. I think in John Elway's situation, you get kind of foggy eyed, or you put him in that Michael Jordan category to where you're trying to draft someone who you're trying to basically compare to yourself,
Hmm.
and it's hard to do because obviously Elway was able to lead this franchise for about 14, 15 seasons or whatever. And he was fortunate enough that Peyton Manning was available that he could bring in and just turn everything over to him. So you got
Right.
4 years out of Peyton Manning. But it's hard. I mean, you have to be able to strike it rich and strike it right the first time around in the draft or in free agency to where you can get that right
But you
quarterback in there.
but you but you look at it though. How many Hall of Famers did they have on within that run, that 15-year run that Elway was at the helm? They had
If you,
five or six Hall of Famers,
yeah,
right? So, like I said, you got to have that cast of characters. I mean, you got to have a Shannon Sharp, you got to have a Travis Kelsey, Ed McCaffrey, those guys that are able. And I mean, what Shanahan, you know,
actually, John
uh,
Atwater, I know
yeah,
he's over here somewhere.
yeah. So I mean,
Got to go
and
hire
also
him.
Hall of Fame coach, So I just think. Uh, I don't think they did him his just due. I think he gets a bad rap. I really do. Now, granted, his play hasn't shown that he should be out there, but I think it could be better. It really could.
We've got just a little over a half hour away before kickoff. Kansas City Chiefs, Denver Broncos, first half of the NFL Week 18 doubleheader on a Saturday. Steve, when we look at here, we do see a lot of orange. I ain't gonna lie, there's a lot of Broncos fans there. And
Is that
granted,
orange or is that just
I
red?
mean,
Are
no,
you?
look. Now there are red jerseys sprinkled in. Now I ain't gonna lie.
Yeah.
Now it's gonna be a nice showing of red and orange, and of course we'll get a chance when they do the Star Sprinkle Banner. They get to the end, we'll see how loud the home of the Chiefs comes through here. And I don't know if Mark Donovan is here yet or not, but we usually get a thumbs up from him if that's the case. But Daryl Williams had a good game last week. Obviously, Jerick McKinnon as well. Derek Gore. Clyde Edwards-Helaire is on the inactive list for today. Lucas Niang is not, by the way, so perhaps we might see him play in today's ball game. I am curious, based off of what we saw last week. You and I, we were the only KC media in Cincinnati, but what we saw, what lessons do you think this coaching staff learned from last week's loss?
Oof, offensively, I
I,
think I
I,
think
I
I
hit you with the
start.
hard
Yeah,
question
no,
first.
I start with the offense. I think that's the easy one. You gotta you gotta strike while the iron is hot, right? You got to make sure that when you look at that second half, you got to come out and create a ball. Now, granted, I think what hurt was the fact that the Byron Pringle kick return that going before half. I think that would have put the Bengals away, but you only touched the
Well, the
ball three
drop pass from Tyreek as well probably could have put him away as well.
and you only touched the ball two times, right? After or three times after you had three possessions after in the
Half.
second half. So you gotta have when possessions are crucial. Now that teams you look, the Chiefs have done it. They've come back on teams before. So I mean it's very possible. And so I think they just need to keep the foot on the gas. Now on the defensive side of the ball, look, Steve Spagnuolo is a great coach, Super Bowl winning coach, right? Two
Two
times Super Bowl
times.
winning coach. So and he's very defensive minded. So I think he's one of the better defensive coaches in the league. And look, if he's on 3rd and 27, if it works out. If it works out, then he's a genius, right? But it didn't, and so now it's like, man, would I love to have gotten that back, right? You want to make sure that if it were me, I would have doubled, and made somebody else beat me. You got to double Jamar Chase. I mean, he has 200 yards at that point. You got to make sure that nobody else or that he won't beat you. So I think they learn from that, and I think when you think about how much they effort that they've done when going from 3 and 4 right to where they are now, night and day. So they did run off 8 straight. So I mean, a loss is a loss, but I think they'll learn from what they did.
Yeah, I mean, look, the sky's not falling.
Hmm.
They put themselves in position still to get the number one seed if the dominoes run away. Now, granted, up until last week, everything was they were in the driver's seat and they control their own destiny. Now, not so much. So I don't want people to think just because they lost in the manner in which they lost that the sky's falling. However, I would like to see this time around that as you talked about offensively being more consistent.
Hmm.
If you're scoring 28 points in the first half, I'd like to see some type of momentum taking place in the second half of the ball game. And then also, here's the thing that really worried me: no in-game adjustments.
Hmm.
Even you talked about how they had 3 possessions in the second half. Well, you could have extended plays, but
Right.
because you're so, I mean, not saying that you have to listen to analytics, but you should be able to feel the momentum shifting away from you. Where again, they had 14-point leads at 3 different points during the ball game, and so when that started to evaporate, you should have not be afraid, especially if you talk about how you trust your offense and you trust your players. Then you should trust that if you need to go for it on 4th and 2, 4th and 3, that they'll be able to pick it up. I mean,
Yeah.
because you got
Yeah.
Patrick Mahomes and not feel like you got to punt the ball away. And then when you punt the ball away, they come back and score. Now you're down. I mean, now you're only up by 7, and now the game is tied. And now you're sitting there struggling, and you're playing a little bit more tight now because the game is tied versus you extend the lead maybe with a field goal or a touchdown
Hmm.
where you extended 10 to 14 points, and you're not in the situation that you find yourself in last week. So that's what I would like to see going into this game today.
And I agree. I agree with all that. But you got to remember what part of the game is it? What where you at as far as how is your defense playing good? Then you can kind of go for it. But if they were playing like they were giving up last week, you're gonna second guess it, right? But 9 times out of 10, I think they make that play, and I think Javarius Ward has went back and looked at film and just had it like Tyrann Matthew said post game. When you have a bad day, people with good teams are going to expose you, and that's what they did. And so I think he had a bad game. You rarely see that type of deal in the NFL where somebody just gets big brothered, right? And I think that's what happened. So we'll see. We'll see how he comes out and plays today.
Steve Walls, Darren Smith with you live from Empower Field at Mile High Stadium, bringing you pregame coverage as we get set for Chiefs Broncos at the bottom of the hour. A little bit after 2 o'clock here locally, a little bit after 3 o'clock back in Kansas City. Steve, another thing that to watch out for. Now, we talked a little bit about it last week. When Tyreek Hill came back from the COVID-19 list,
Mhm.
and he only had a couple of catches, but you had big time play from the other wide receivers. Travis Kelsey and Harrison Butker, Tommy Thompson, a few others came back last week from COVID. Travis Kelsey did have a touchdown catch, could have had two, but he caught the ball to one and went out of bounds. I don't think he realized where he was on the field. Um, Patrick Mahomes, even though he spread the ball around, they didn't really have the number of receptions that they normally have. So I'm looking forward to see what happens in today's game, whether or not the conditioning of the players has gotten better since they've returned from the COVID list, and whether or not we'll see an uptick in the number of receptions that Mahomes gets to Travis Kelsey and Tyreek Hill. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree. The guys kind of look lethargic, even though they were off, 5, 6, 7, some of them 7, 8 days.
Yeah.
So I think they'll have gotten their win back. And one of the guys that I looked at and watched him the whole game is Nick Bolton. I think that defense goes. We talk a lot about Tyrann Mathieu
Mhm.
and the front four, but I think that defense goes as fast as Nick Bolton plays.
Yeah.
Right? He wasn't flying around as much last week. You saw him run to the sideline, catch a wind, some wind a little bit more than normal. So I think I'm really going to be watching him closely today just to see if he's flying around and if he has his wind and his feet back under him.
Another thing to watch out for in today's game is there's a particular player, and Steve, you know this because we were on a Zoom call last week of the season when the Chiefs elected to keep some of their starters out of the ball game. There was a player who was 2.5 sacks away
Mm-hmm.
from getting that $1.25 million bonus. And I asked about it, and they try to play it off, or whatever. Spags and a few others try to play it off like, oh, they ain't worried about it. Then it was reported Adam Schefter on that particular day when we were doing our pregame show, and Chris Jones was highly upset that he couldn't play because he wanted to try to get those 2.5 sacks. Today, he only needs one sack for that $1.25 million bonus. Does he get it? And if not, should he be upset at himself if he doesn't get it in today's game?
No, I mean I think he gets it. I do. I do. I mean
Okay.
you need one sack. I
I
I
mean,
listened to
it's
I
easier
listened
said than done now. So
Yeah, no, I listened to Shannon Sharp earlier this week, and he was talking about when he needed he was his base pay was like
yep,
$300,000, and he
and he
needed
need
100,000. He
a
if
thousand
he
yards
made
receiving,
1,000 yards receiving,
120
he
yards.
was 100
He was
120
5 yards
yards
away. I
exactly.
was,
So he needed 125. He got 120. Didn't get the other 5 yards, and so that 100,000 would have definitely made it. But I think Chris does it when you have that carrot that's dangling over you. I think sometimes you make sure that you're gonna go get it. I don't know if you see that commercial where the guy's like, almost got it. He got the dollar out there with the fishing rod. Yeah, that's gonna be Chris today, but I think he's gonna be able to get it.
Here's the other thing, though. If he's not playing on the outside for a number of weeks and
Mhm.
is just playing his position, he would have already had the 10 sacks without to worry about it. So,
I don't. But Frank Clark wasn't playing. They didn't have Melvin Ingram, so I mean,
I know 6 and one and a half dozen in the other.
exactly,
That's
exactly,
how it operates. But
exactly.
be that as it may, though, the Kansas City Chiefs looking for win number 12 on the season. I got to say one thing, man. Vegas is spot on. I don't know how they figured this out because before the season they were talking about the Chiefs will be 12-5. I'm like, come on, man. The Chiefs losing 5 games this year.
Yeah.
Lo and behold, they're 11-5. I'm like, good God, I need to figure out my life if they can figure this out, before the season begins. But look, as you mentioned before, Frank Clark's looking for his third game in a row with the sack. Chris Jones, again, he's had 2+ sacks, and he had 2 sacks in last week's game. So he's looking for his third game this season with multiple sacks. Of course, all he needs is one for that bonus. Looking ahead, who is the player? Who's going to be the unsung hero in today's game for the Kansas City Chiefs?
I think it's Tyrann Mathieu. We talked about it, and I know you said I thought last week he played a little
I thought
hurt.
he made some business decisions last
I
week.
think he played a little hurt with the quad last week, but I think that today you're going to see a totally different guy. And another guy I like to see step up is Juan Thornhill. We really haven't seen Juan make very many plays, and I think today is one of those days where he's gonna have to show something, man. I really do. I mean, he's one of those young guys that needs to make sure that he shows some plays, positive plays as well. So I think it's going to be if two guys, the two safeties, Juan Thornhill and Tyron Matthew.
I know a question that a lot of fans are going to want to know: are we going to see a healthy dose of Dan Sorensen?
Nah, I don't know. Next question.
Okay, that's a good one. Okay, fantasy wise, or at least for some of us who usually do parlays, I didn't do any today,
Mm,
player parlay, so,
mm.
so I won't get that on the record
Good for
first.
you.
I know, right? But be that as may, who are you looking? Obviously Kansas City should win this game, and if they do, if they have a big lead, you're perhaps if you're in the read, you're going to pull your players
You have to.
towards the fourth, towards the fourth quarter. If the game is out of reach, so you can kind of get them away from harm's way and get them ready for the playoffs. Who are you looking to have? I guess maybe some standout stats today.
Man, I want to see Tyreek Hill and also Travis Kelsey get more involved. Last week I think that was part of the problem in the second half is that I mean Mecole Hardman had one play, 52 yards, I believe,
He was the
and
leading
then
receiver too
and
with that
then
one
you had
catch.
you had Byron Pringle who had a couple of a couple of nice grabs, and so I think in the second half, Patrick tried to get his guys involved, the two guys that he knows are the reliable guys, and that's Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelsey. But I think if you got some guys that are eating, you got some guys that have the hot hand. Keep going to them, man. You have to, and I understand when a game gets close, you're gonna go with people you trust.
Yeah.
That's just human nature, right? So I think Travis Kelsey. I want to see how he comes out today and plays.
If I'm a Chiefs fan, if I'm the Chiefs, I like to see them kind of stick to the running game some. Now, granted,
Mm,
they have been able to run the ball effectively. I think last week they ran the ball for over 150 yards. And look, they had a really good balance because I asked Patrick after the game about it. And he thought usually, he had 2 touchdowns. They had 4 touchdowns and scored 28 points.
hmm
Didn't have any turnovers, didn't have any sacks. They ran the ball for over 150 yards. Generally, that equates to a win. Now, of course, they still lost and stuff like that. But I like to see them be a little bit more consistent to where they're not trying to use the run late in the ball game to keep the team on the sideline
Yeah.
in the hopes that they can kind of burn out the clock or get into the end zone late. I like for them to have a little bit more of a balance, but throughout the game to where again, I'm not expecting the Broncos at all to have any type of offensive firepower like we saw last week in Cincinnati. But I would just like to see the Chiefs be able to work on that because when you go to the playoffs, you're going to be facing quarterbacks that your team has already lost to. They've lost to Buffalo. They've lost to Cincinnati. They've lost to
hmm
Tennessee. So to me, you can, and then of course you might end up facing the Indianapolis Colts, who while I'm not impressed with the quarterback, they do have a running back that you got to respect that you may
Yeah.
want to try to keep on the sideline. So I like for them to showcase that they can have a better balance of the offense that if need be they can utilize and get behind to keep the other team on the sideline and to extend plays. Look, I'm all for big plays. I'm all for it. You know that because it adds up on the scoreboard. But at times you can put your defense at a disadvantage because you're putting them back out there on the field. I like to see them kind of stretch the play some and stretch the drive some. You know, 8, 9, 10, 12, 15 drive plays
hmm
is good too. It still equates to a touchdown. And, for the most part, you can keep your players healthy like that, more so run the football than you can, quick plays and, I don't know,
But
maybe try to throw something out there.
you mentioned Chris Jones, and I talked about the carrot being dangled over Chris Jones, right?
Yeah.
Getting that one sack. You have another guy on the offensive side of the ball, and you just talked about running plays, being more balanced. Daryl Williams, 37 yards away from 1,000 all-purpose yards on this season. That's the first of his career, right? I think as an undrafted guy, he wants to get that, and I think he's going to be able to get that today. And I think his teammates, guys like Patrick Mahomes, want him to get that. So
Yeah.
I think that's going to be another guy on the offensive side of the ball that we're going to watch today. I think he's going to come out and ball.
Before we get out of here, Steve, I've got to know how this game is going to unfold in your opinion. Who wins and what is the score?
It's gonna be close.
Huh?
No, let me finish. It's gonna be close. First half, like I said, Drew Lock is gonna come out and play out of his mind. But going into the second half, I think the Chiefs gonna pull away, and by a large deficit. They're going a large margin. I mean, you're gonna have the Chiefs. I'll say
Oh,
41-17.
okay.
41-17.
Oh,
And not to mention nice weather too. 46 degrees, 51 when I walked in the building. So much warmer than Kansas City.
it is. It is expected though to have a little wintry mix around 4:30 or so.
Hmm.
A little bit after half.
Wintry mix.
Yeah, mix of rain and snow. So
Yeah.
we'll see. We'll see what comes with that. I got the Chiefs winning 35 to 10, 13 at the most. I don't see
Okay.
Drew Lock getting in the end zone, more than once. But
Okay.
I think Kansas City will come out strong, and I think they'll have sort of a repeat of what they did last week against Cincinnati, where I think they have a big first half. I think they'll score a touchdown in the third quarter, and then pull their starters out in the fourth quarter, allow Chad Henne and some of the backups to get the chance to play, so you can rest some of your main guys to go to get out of this game and to go into the playoffs. I think Kansas City does a better job balancing both the run and the pass and the scoring as well. And I do believe Spags. Well, again, because they don't have the type of players of Jamar Chase on this team, I'm not really so concerned about what they do in this ball game. But I do want them to take away some of the lessons that they learned last week and put it in the black box and open it up next week when they begin the playoffs. So I got the Chiefs winning 35 to 13.
Hmm.
Drew Lock will probably get a touchdown pass or run and 2 field goals, and that's going to be that for their season. Steve, before we get out of here, man, who styled you today, man, and who would you like to acknowledge your sponsor for the week?
I want to shout out to my good friends over at Dealers on Rosa, man. They always make me look amazing. I appreciate them. Also, Leandria Harden, she had her put her expertise in on it as well. So
That
shout
name
out
sounds
shout out
familiar
to
for
them.
some reason.
Yeah, shout out to them, man. Go check out Dealers on Rosa and make sure you tell them I sent you. Tell them I sent you out there, and they'll get you taken care of.
Got somebody parachuting into the stadium as we speak right
Hmm.
now. So kind of, oh, there they go. Come, oh, damn, he came down kind of fast. It came down kind of fast. Oh, it's 2 of them. Okay, that's kind of
Four
scary.
of them.
4. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, got 4 of them. But anyway, I'm sorry. So shout out. I want to get. Well, yeah, here comes some more. They're coming down fast too. Want to give a shout out to Todd White and Todd's Clothiers and Taylor Suits, obviously, every week keeping me styling, looking good. Obviously, can't wait for the playoffs to start next week, so I can see what he has in store for me when it comes to that. Also, want to give a shout out to Gates Barbecue, always taking care of us home and on the road. Make sure they got 5 locations. Make sure you go by, get that double deuce, get you 2 ribs, a side as well for $12.50. Then also want to give a shout out to Cherry Sports Gear with Thaila Cherry, taking care of my hotel lodging, and of course, she is a sponsor of the Chiefs Presser for us here. So until post game, where we'll be bringing you the Chiefs post presser on our respective social media channels with the Zoom for Steve Walls. I am Darren Smith. You can reach out to Steve Walls on his social media platforms at Steve Walls KC. You can reach out to me at Darren Smith WHB. We are out of here. We'll see you post game, and then of course either next week or the week after as the Chiefs begin their road to the Super Bowl at Arrowhead Stadium. We are out.